wellnesscouch.com, streaming wellness into your lives.
Welcome to Nourishing the Mother, featuring your hosts Bridget Wood and Julie Tenner.
Hello and welcome to Nourishing the Mother. I'm Bridget Wood.
And I'm Julie Tenner. And we'd love to dive more deeply with you on a weekly basis where we can really take you into our lives, into our learning, into our loves, into our wrap-ups for our week. So we'd love you to join our tribe so that we can connect with you via email. So you can do that at nourishingthemother.com.au and join our tribe, and you'll just get a once a week email, sometimes twice a week if we've got some juicy stories to tell, so that we can really, be front of mind when we're on this conscious parenting gig. It's really often about the reminders and the stories and the, and I think that's really what we're aiming to do here. So jump into our tribe so that we can really help you facilitate being the best possible version of you can be in this motherhood gig.
That's it. And this week on the podcast, we are talking embracing the chaos, and it's really comes off the back of the blog. I wrote a blog this week, which has gone out to our tribe, and it was one of those kind of moments where, you just get stuck in your head, you're in the house, there's to-do lists in one kind of, part of your brain, and then there's the kids, and there's just a sense of overwhelm, right? And I know that every mother, probably at various times of the day, finds themselves at this point. And there was this watershed moment for me where I was kind of mentally checking off all the things that I had to do and all the messes that I had to clean up. And I kind of walked into my bedroom, and it was like the next thing, right? So it was like the next pile of cushions that had been grabbed from every area of the house by my 4-year-old. And in that moment, I saw him like sailing through the air saying, "It's a jumping castle." And I just had to have that, like a double take, or I thought, wow, like this is the magic of it, right? But how often do we kind of get caught up in the, no, like, I didn't want you to do that. And no, I'm trying to clean up and you're just making more of a mess and all of that stuff. And for me, that was the complete flip of it and going, oh, wow, like, this is life happening right now. Like, this is not a dress rehearsal for when my kids are X, then I can do Y. This is what it means to fully sit in the warts and all messiness of motherhood in every sense of the word. Messiness in terms of our physical space, but messiness around like the discomfort, the uncomfortable emotions, the sound, when we hear ourselves sounding like our own mother and we kind of reflect on that and go, oh, I didn't want to say that, or all those times where you just feel like you need to go and hide from your kids just to get some space again. Like, this is the nuts and bolts of it, and this is the beauty of it. But so this podcast, I really want to talk about how we get more of those opportunities to sink more willingly into that, rather than find ourselves weeks or months kind of later just coping and resenting, which is, I think, where a lot of mothers find themselves because they get to that breaking point where they can't take it anymore, right?
I loved your perspective flip within that blog where you'd said I'd looked around and saw, instead of this pile of mess, just the magic that was being created in each, each spot of that.
Yeah, because I was really looking at it from the perspective of, wow, like it's not just Legos strewn across everywhere. It was like the remnants of the 5 rebuilds of a particular plane that he'd made. And with my daughter, it wasn't just discarded toys. It was her level of, mastery over being able to touch different objects and turn them around in her hands because she's a baby. These weren't just household items that needed to be tidied up. They were like evidence of learning and exploring and the richness of childhood. And I really felt in that moment and expressing that blog how much there's opportunity for reverence right in front of us. And as I was writing it and looking around me, like I got the tear in my eye where I just thought, wow, like this is the stuff of it. Like this is the beauty of it.
So how did you do that in the moment then? How did you, in that moment, move from overwhelm to comfort? Well, it's discomfort, really. It's being out of your comfort zone to being back in your comfort zone. I
think I always think when my brain's going like hardcore and I'm feeling overwhelmed, I always almost feel like at the same time as me feeling overwhelmed, it's like my intuition's trying to wake me up to something. is trying to say, like, what are you not seeing here? Like, the more polarized you're getting, the more frustrated you're getting, the more you're only seeing this situation as one-sided. And so I think it was, the moment that I saw Hugo flying through the air and like this big pile of stuff that he was so excited about. At the same time as I saw that, I also saw, in my head all the times I got so frustrated with him for messing up my bed, and telling him not to because I just made it. And then I thought, wow, like, how nice would it be to just lean into these times and just let him play. Just let him play like he wants to, like he's always asking me to, and allow him to enjoy his childhood. Probably it was also off the back of doing a lot of research into natural learning. So I could see the benefits more broadly than simply just my, projection of it being mess. So that came into it, but I think it was a combination of a couple of different things that allowed me to take that step back. And then it allows you to then figure out, you don't just leave it like a mess and let your kids overtake your house, but you figure out how to make it into a game so that it's teamwork to clean up. I've got a saying at the moment, which is teamwork makes the dream work. And so I always talk about that with him when I'm trying to compel him to help me, because I really believe it. It's like that little interview we did with Jo Whitten, where she explained with her 4 children who she'd homeschooled, so you can imagine, the chaos of homeschooling 4 children. And she said from very, very young, she'd always talked to the kids about blessing the home by cleaning up and tidying, everybody having a role and a responsibility. And I think that that's also, again, the more that we can do that as mothers, the less we make it all about all the stuff we have to do, and the more that we make it a team effort and a family responsibility, so that not only do we get some more spaciousness, but our kids also learn responsibility.
I need to remember that. I need to remember teamwork is dream work. And I need to remember the home blessing. I had forgotten that.
Yeah. And I think it's really empowering for kids to have those responsibilities. I mean, you do that with your older kids for sure.
Yeah, I definitely do. But it's more like, I just expect you to do it.
Yeah.
Not probably with the same reverence that perhaps I'm sort of hearing in these conversations, maybe.
Yeah, and I think there's always an opportunity, isn't it? Like, it's that kind of thing, if we're going to have things in our home that we get, maybe if we get to eat nice food, then we also have the responsibility to clean up, the plates and the glasses, and, we'll be part of it together in preparing that nice food. Same thing, if we're going to have nice things, then we have a responsibility to tidy those things, because when we tidy them, it shows the things that we care for them and that our things will care for us more. That whole, energetic exchange too is a nice thing to bring into it, I think, as well.
I really love that too. I'm getting so many great reminders tonight.
Oh, good. And
just keep going, Bridget.
But no, I wanted to ask you, because, you particularly, if anyone's been to Julie's house when she has like 10 children here, which is kind of quite often, and probably that's going to be happening in the school holidays, I'm sure.
Yeah.
How do you create spaciousness within yourself to embrace the chaos of that and lean into the fun at the same time as there being so much going on and so much, cleaning up that is being created right in front of your eyes?
It probably honestly is a perspective flip like you're talking about. It's probably more of an unconscious one, because it's a really big motivation of mine to provide a home environment in which my children and their friends want to bathe in. That I'm very, very conscious. Like, I'm very conscious with lots of places and spaces and projected energy within my home. I'm very conscious about what's happening within that. And I'm also, the older my kids get, and probably the broader the slice of community is that I'm exposed to, I'm more and more aware of the variations in parenting and the variations in support and
for the children.
For children. Yeah. And so I guess, it's partly a bit of a fantasy, I suppose, but part of me feels a real responsibility for expanding my mothering beyond my children, to incorporate anyone who's within my home, within my energy. And that in essence, I feel like it's a gift. Like it's a service, right? It's a gift that I can give back to whoever is within that space.
I have to say, and I absolutely felt that, particularly when I had to let go and leave Hugo with you when I went into when I had to be, I was induced, and so I was like, oh my God, I'm saying goodbye to my son. I didn't think I was going to, but I have to leave him. And you were like, he's going to be fine. Yeah, and I knew he was going to be fine because of all the people to really care for him and hold him in that transition. I knew it would be you, which was really lovely. And it was not simply because of your own spaciousness, but the energy within the home that you create.
Yeah, and I guess I just kind of, I don't know, every kid that's here becomes like another one of mine. I don't know, like it's, I guess we're reasonably, I hope I'm reasonably conscious with who I foster relationships with my kids. I think I've spoken before that I can be quite intentional with that. And in general, I think the more my children really deeply know who they are, the more they choose friendships that really serve them. And in which case, those friendships they choose, I'm finding that I'm loving those kids more and more because they're more and more like my kids.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So when I have a house full of 10 kids and people coming and going, and I kind of just feel like, Mother Goose in the kitchen and
just making the food
and popping in and out of bits of play of various, because there's always kids of various ages depending on who's there for the play, right? So, pop into the 3-year-olds who are making mud pies and think, oh, that's really cool, and I enjoy that for 5 minutes. And then I'll pop into the 11-year-olds who are playing basketball and music or something. And, it's pockets. It's, and I'm pretty good at play for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Extended play over a whole day, not so great. But for really short bursts, I'm pretty good at it. So it's kind of like this idyllic version of parenting. I think you kind of get these good bits with none of the shit bits, really. And because it's a whole group of kids and, everybody, I guess, kind of flows together, at the end of play, I just say, yeah, I'm cool with you going to do that, whatever. But you just need to pack up what you've just played with first.
Yeah, which is totally reasonable.
They just do.
Yeah.
So, to be honest with you, after a play date, I don't really feel like my house is more crazy because often it's more in order because I'm feeling really balanced. The kids are feeling really balanced and my house has been loved in many ways. So,
I love that expression, the house being loved.
Yeah, it's lived in, right? It's
vibing with
and
energy.
It's small and it's tiny and it's, not super styled, but, it's full of love. And that's
beautiful.
Pretty amazing space to walk into. And I think we often don't give reverence to that because we're not aware of those differences within society because we get really stuck in our own little bubbles. But having worked with so many families over so many years and then being exposed to more and more as my kids get older, I just think, whoa, even in my shittest moments, my kids have got it pretty good. So there's just such perspective there.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because it's so easy to think, and this is kind of a little bit of a segue, but it's interesting to think that our shittest moments of parenting might be someone else's best ones.
Yeah.
That's pretty significant. And I think it's something that we often don't think about because what we do is just what we do. Yeah. Right? It's just what I value. It's just who I am. Don't really think twice. Of course, this is just how it is.
And often we set the bar so high.
Yeah.
We don't actually realise where we are.
What really speaks to me with what you're saying is that whole principle. I haven't read the book, but there's a book called Hold On to Your Kids.
Oh, I haven't
come across that one.
No,
and I think it is just talking about that the encroachment of culture and distraction and the loss of childhood. And, the impact of, mental health issues and all of those kinds of things and just how much that creating that bubble really serves children to go out into the world from that safe space. And, it makes me want to read it and understand some of the principles that they're talking about there because I would be quite sure that creating that safe home environment would be really key.
Yeah, I think so. And I certainly hear stories from friends that have, slightly older kids than mine and are really in that teenage phase of, sometimes they just have kids who seemingly live with them for days or weeks on ends because they don't have a family home that they're going home to.
Wow.
Just stuff like that. And I kind of think, yeah, you know, this work that we're putting in here is actually way more profound and the ripples way larger than what I even think they are. So, you know, when I'm here.
But yet, because there's not a societal kind of like tick of approval on what we do, and we put this kind of effort in, it's easy not to value it. It's easy not to kind of think that.
But it's kind of like that. What's that? It's like the angel donation, you know, to put your money towards something completely anonymously. You know, what's that called?
Yeah,
it's got a term for it. You know, and you don't get recognition for it is largely the point of it,
It's
right?
like an anonymous donation.
Yeah, an anonymous. It's kind of the same thing, right? These acts of incredible, courageous love that largely no one is ever going to know about except that person. And you just don't know where those ripples are going.
So true, isn't it?
Into, you know, the rest of their lives, into who they become and where they go and what relationships they have and how they parent themselves.
And I mean, I'm sure we can all go back to our own childhoods and remember the kinds of dynamics between our friends' families and, you know, who, you know, perhaps the friend, you know, the one set of friends, parents who you really gelled with, or the one friend's house where you felt safe and it was like fun. Because you really only get a real insight into other families and how they work when you are a young child and you're starting to socialise within those different networks, which becomes all the more important to really create that safe harbour within your own home, knowing that your kid is going to kind of go out and perhaps be challenged, particularly the more supported or perhaps conscious the parenting is, the more affronting the exposure to other family homes and dynamics would be, I imagine.
Yeah, I imagine so too. I mean, that's not to say that it's always peaceful in the house.
No, and we're really happy to bust the whole peaceful family, aren't we?
It's like really seriously not.
Yeah.
But I guess my point is, in those moments of hundreds of kids, I don't feel crazy in myself. I guess in the day-to-day, if I'm thinking about the overwhelm, like the crazy house that I can't get on top of and the to-do list that seems really big. They are the times probably I realise I'm battling with myself in an outdated belief system, because whatever's holding me there in the overwhelm is outdated, right? It's not reality, it's not truth, it's certainly not expansion. So it's keeping me somewhere. And I'm acutely aware of that now. And so instead of trying to be the martyr and, you know, soldier through and, you know, feel completely resourceless and tapped out and cranky by the time my husband even steps foot in the house. Now I actually embrace him into that, even though he's at work. So we spent so many years, I think I've said before, having these really vulnerable conversations when I can't give myself the permission I need to let go, is to ring him and just say, you know, literally, I'm feeling really overwhelmed. I've got this and this and this and, you know, the pile of washing and the house that's a tip and, I don't know, whatever. The bathroom I haven't cleaned in 2 weeks and I'm not going to get to dinner and I've still got to do all this other shit. and I'm so tense and I can't stop and, you know, I really want to. And, you know, sometimes that's all I need to say. And he just kind of, I really hear him take this exhale and I think, whoa, he's just, you know, inhaled all of that. And he's so good at just unconsciously letting it out of his body. Like it's inhale the good shit, exhale the bad shit, right?
Yeah.
Which really should be his mantra now I think about it, because he just does it so unconsciously. Anyway, so he exhales my bullshit for me, which is so great.
I love that.
It really does. It's this full body sigh.
Yeah.
And then he, you know, just says something really simple like, I fully give you permission to let it go. And sometimes I shed a tear and sometimes I say, I really can't. And he just says it again. I fully give you permission to this. I am holding on to nothing here. I don't care if it's the same when I get home. I give you full permission to just be. And I mean, these are practice sentences that we've worked out. I mean, I've pretty much hand-fed him the response I need to hear, or the deepest part of me needs to hear. So not the shallow part that's in this overwhelm, not the part that's functioning on a superficial level, but when I get below that, what's the actual need? And it's deep insecurity. I mean, that's what it is. It's replaying a really old pattern of insecurity, that I'm not okay, of rejection. You know, really painful stuff. And I know my inner child just needs to hear I'm loved and I'm safe. And it's okay, because that level of expectation is not reality. It's my projected perfect person trying to be better. So, I mean, I've worked that out and invited him again into that conversation of, I know I'm neurotic and sound like this and I'm doing this, but what I really need to hear from you is this. Literally, I've hand-fed him word by word those sentences, but now they're his.
Because he's owned them and he's made them his own way.
And that's the difference. So now when I ring up, I don't feel like I'm ringing up myself, although really I kind of am anyway, which is quite funny.
Yeah, it is.
So I would really say, you know, if you are really seeking a conscious awakening relationship with your intimate loved one, I think we often stunt our own growth with them because we assume that they are or are not this list of things. And what I've found is that's us.
Oh.
It's not actually them.
So amazing. And it's one of those things that you really need to start really taking a new look at what those projections are onto those loved ones around you, and start to question where those have come from and whether it's actually, you know, a belief of your own or a confirmed reality, because very often it's going to likely be just simply a belief that you've got, that you've held on to, that you're using to keep you perhaps safe, perhaps kind of towing some line that you've defined for yourself needs to be there.
Yeah.
But very often is of our own making, and it's like that whole principle of, you know, that the cage that we create for ourselves.
It's like an old story, like a nightmare that you're still running in, that you haven't woken up from. So, you know, I would really say, when you're really running those, you know, panic moments, what is it that the deepest part of you really needs? Not wants, because we all want to be rescued when we're not in power, which in those situations we are disempowered because we've not yet mined the gold to find the power. We're playing the victim in those roles.
Yeah.
So we're disempowered and we're going to look for someone to rescue us in those moments. That's not actually going to help us on our growth, but that's what we're going to look for.
Yeah.
So not what do you want, what does the deepest part of you need? You know, that vulnerable part, that part below the surface stuff that you kind of don't want to talk to, and to even air what she really wants sounds like cringeworthy.
The part that's almost addicted to you being busy in your motherhood so you don't have to listen to it.
Yeah. So I love the phrasing, as you know, I've said it so many times, just even the phrase of what is it that the deepest part of me desires? What is it the deepest part of me needs right now? For some reason, this word deepest, I feel like really clicks the feminine into that deep-seated gut womb space. And I think we can really access
it asks you to come at the question from a much more authentic space.
Yeah. So, I think I've totally gone off tangent there, Bridget, and I've forgotten where we've gotten to. But I guess the point of it is you've got to find your recipe for what is actually going on when you're in overwhelm. Why are you trying to hold particular standards, which obviously have hit a roadblock where they're not serving anymore because you're really hitting some pain points with them. So what is it actually waking you up to bust and to break through? Which both you and I have done in very creative and different ways. And I think you could do all three of those together or separately or pick your recipe.
I think the key thing is to start noticing your patterns. So what are the patterns that are leading you to this feeling of overwhelm? What are the patterns that are leading you to like that, you know, cranky mom snarkiness kind of thing? You know, if it's something in your child or your partner, what is the trigger in them that gets you to that point? Because that'll be where to start digging and starting to see the work to do around that.
So I just also wanted to ask you a bit more about, because I know you'd spent a lot of time actually pre this revelation of your chaotic home in the functions of natural play, let's say, or the unschooling perspective of childhood learning. Do you want to share any more about that?
Yeah. Excuse me. That has been an interesting one because I'm not a great player. I can probably do the 5-minute thing, but even today, like my son wanted to play doctors, and I was like, oh, like even after like 15 minutes, I was just like, okay, I'm done now. I need to go do something else. So really learning about unschooling natural learning has really been much more a mechanism for me to be more inspired to lean into the learning and help scaffold his learning. And rather than simply sort of see like looking after the kids as kind of a thing that I just do and don't put much thought into. Like I'm a massive learner. Like learning is my like number one thing that I love to do. So for me, it's about how do I bring a little bit more interest and intrigue into my role now, which is predominantly being a stay-at-home mum with the businesses on the side. To help me learn more about myself and learn more about my kids has really been where that's come from. But it's been fascinating because I really have started to reflect a lot more on, what were the questions that my son was asking me around today. What did he show interest in learning? What did we go? What made him light up? Excuse me. And with Sylvie, what made her excited, like at the moment she's obsessed with our dog. And so where can I give her more opportunities to pat the dog and play with the dog? And it just makes it a bit more intentional, this journey of being at home at the moment. Yeah, that's kind of where it comes from.
Yeah, I love that. I was really deeply entrenched in the unschooling community actually when my eldest was probably 3 or 4.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. 3 or 4.
It's an interesting age. It's an interesting age to start to open your eyes to the learning before they go into school, because no one's telling him what to learn. It's just unfolding based on his interests, and he's incredibly interested in numbers and sort of maths per se, kind of, and which I find fascinating because it's so not my area, and it was a massive like painful wound for me for so long. So it's really interesting that I'm finding myself now researching how to help him learn more about numbers and measurement in a fun way, because I freaking hated it.
Yeah. I see it then actually too. You just reminded me too. I remember doing like a wholesale order for a whole heap of Montessori based learning.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so in the afternoons his behaviour used to go a bit haywire. And I realised he was bored. And so what I used to do was in the lounge room, and look, his sister's only 18 months younger, so, it was not that big a difference. And second born girl, they kind of catch up quicker. So I used to set up in the afternoons like a circle in my lounge room of different activities, Montessori kind of based learning activities. And he'd just work his way around them, or we'd kind of move around them together.
Cool.
In a circle. And that worked so well. Like all of a sudden this behaviour that was seemingly dysfunctional disappeared. And it was just boredom. He actually wasn't stretched enough.
Yeah, it's so interesting, isn't it?
So to actually provide more moments of stimulation worked really well for him.
It's really cool.
It's really cool, and I've still got those, those toys because they're all wooden and still incredible, and I still pull them out now as my kids are older and they're learning different versions of maths or, pi pieces and percentages. And
yeah, like because we're talking a lot about fractions at the moment, not the word fractions, but like, 3, Lola's 3.5 and Hugo was 3 3/4. Right?
Yeah.
How do you represent that?
Yeah, all of those sorts of things, which is really cool. So I think it's also playing to your strengths too. So I love that you're researching and finding how you can combine both together. Yeah. And I would say if you're an artist, that you would involve your children in art. And if you're a nature lover, that you would create pockets of intention around being in nature or around animals, or, how do you actually extend your genius? Yeah. To really let them see you shine and kind of advance beyond that too. And I think that pulls back the overwhelm too, because it really puts a sense of intention and purpose rather than just an endless day. Yeah, and that you're able to do what you love alongside your children, which is really powerful. And perhaps even it's an opportunity, as we go into the school holidays here in Australia, or even if it's a weekend for you, to think about around your children, who else do they spend time with, and what do they love, and perhaps can you set up some kind of activity with them, like for instance, my son often ends up painting with my mum because she's an artist, and bathing your kids in the genius of others is just an awesome strategy for them to grow in themselves, and for you to ensure that they're learning. Yeah, it's so true. And actually most school holidays, or at least once a year in school holidays, we set up even now there's a group of sort of 3 of us who set up a science day with our kids.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, and so we all plan 1 or 2 like at home sciencey things that we might have got off Pinterest or whatever. And we all take it in turns of playing the role essentially of science teacher to a table of kids, and all varying ages. So from 3 up to 12. And we do all these really cool science things. We've done some super cool ones over the years too. Yeah, it's super great. And definitely playing to the strengths of those around you. So we set up also purposeful play dates where you've got a really, you've got a purpose to them too. Today we're going to do this activity or that activity based on who the kids are. Cooking is another great one. Cooking has taught my kids so much about maths.
Yeah.
About English, about reading a recipe. It's incredible what's actually around you.
And when you follow their interests, they're so much more, they want to be part of it, which is super powerful. And then it's joyful.
Yeah, it is. So, we got off topic again, but I find it really interesting just to look at where your value on, finding the spaciousness and the chaos has come from. And largely when we're looking at chaos being a version of learning, I love that you're able to break it down into seeing what he or she is actually learning in those moments, in those pockets of chaos, and just taking a breath, really, isn't it, to actually let yourself see that and sink into the feeling of that, because that's also bypassing the story that you're running on the perfect house or the perfect person or the perfect whatever. It's really clicking you beyond that.
It calls you into seeing what's right in front of you and out of your kind of pattern and story.
So which actually reminds me, Bridge, that when we're thinking about all of these topics, it reminds me of what we've just recorded for our next course, which is aligned parenting, which we're running at the end of April. And you can now jump online and have a look at in online programs at nourishingthemother.com.au. But we've really totally wanting to debunk this whole concept that motherhood needs to be hard, slogging journey, that when we're able to actually see what's happening below the surface and to pull out more of our authentic selves to really show up in this parenting space, to allow our children to do the same thing, and in fact seeing the dynamic in how they do that for us, and bringing some consciousness and some tools to actually taking that on board on definitely a more conscious way rather than feeling really swept up by it. That's kind of what this whole course is about, is really aligning all of your toolkit of motherhood and femininity and parenting into making just an exceptional experience for you and your kids.
And what's unique about this is that it transcends kind of the parenting shoulds. It transcends kind of the parenting expertise that you can read about everywhere, and takes the basics and then turns it into, okay, well, what does it look like for you? And who are you on this journey, and what is your child representing for you to see and to work through and to own and to grow into. And
what I find extraordinary is it's never just one child, right? Because every child is reflecting us at a different age, at a different stage.
Amazing.
Like, it's incredible when we actually look at what they're calling us into and actually have a toolkit to really awaken that. And the love bomb that comes out of that too is pretty incredible. So if you're feeling really, a bit out of line with where you're at with your parenting and out of step, then we'd really invite you to certainly jump online and check it out. So Aligned Parenting at Nourishing the Mother, and join us. It's just 2 weeks, and I guarantee you'll feel like a different woman on the other side of that 2 weeks.
So hop in there. And if you are liking what you're hearing, please jump on iTunes and rate us. It helps keep us up there, and it helps other mothers across the world find us, which is always lovely. We love getting emails from different parts of the world from people who are enjoying what we're doing, which is great. Sorry, I've got this cough that I cannot shake at the moment.
It's really cool. We totally love that you're listening, that you're forming part of our tribe, and that we're just creating these incredible ripples into parenting and the next generation, and therefore what our world will be.
It's super, super special stuff.
So Nourishing the Mother is on Facebook and Instagram as well. Keep your topic suggestions coming and questions, because they certainly fuel us to keep going. Please check out Aligned Parenting and Reimagining Motherhood, which is our next dive in May as a course for really awakening the feminine and the lusciousness within yourself and motherhood. And connect with you, Bridget.
Yes, it's suburbansandcastles.com. And you, Jules?
I was just going to say, do you know what your next one is?
Yes, the next one is in May, and it's called Nature Play, Taking Back Childhood.
Oh, that's right.
So, of course,
that's kind of perfect for this.
It's totally perfect, and that's exactly why I've been researching unschooling and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, life imitates art, most definitely.
I love that.
Yes, I'm really excited about that one. So if you're in Melbourne, love you to come along and join us for that. And connect with you, Jules.
Is thepleasurenutritionist.com.
And until next week, when we continue to peel back the layers on your mothering journey.
We'll get it right one week.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/The Wellness Couch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives. Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.